Yes, you certainly can.
Yes. You might not be able to see me, but you can certainly hear me. So hi, everyone. I'm Sue White. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of QEC. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're standing or sitting or participating, and really call out the importance of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children being raised with connection to culture, community and country. I think that's the heart of all the work we do. Thanks for that great first presentation. That was a really, really good way to kick off the session. The next presentation is about improving care in Victorian residential services, a new partnership approach. I'm really, really excited to introduce these speakers to you. I think it brings to life everything the previous presentation was about. So please join me in a very, very warm welcome to three speakers today. The first is Dylan Langley, who is an accomplished and sought-after speaker, a lived experience consultant and an advocate who is passionate about seeing young people reach their full potential in life. Dylan's been a leading change agent. He's been an ambassador for the Home Stretch campaign, which we've all got behind and fully supported. And congratulations, Dylan, on the great outcomes you've had there. He's spoken in federal parliament. He's regularly asked to share his insights and experience across a range of settings. To top all that off, Dylan is a recipient of numerous leadership awards, including being a state finalist for the Young Australian of the Year in 2021. So we'll hear from Dylan in just a moment. Alongside Dylan, supporting his presentation is Tash Anderson, who's a founding member of the Victim Survivor Advisory Council. And Tash has done some incredible work in that space, which I'm sure we're all really aware of. Tash draws on her lived experience to give children and young people a voice in family violence reform. She's a member of RIMAG, many other initiatives, the State Homelessness and Housing Reforms, RIMAG, just to name a few. One of Tash's many, many crowning achievements is writing, directing, illustrating and narrating a multi-award nominated short film that was recently screened at a UN film festival in the US. So congratulations, Tash, that's been another amazing achievement of yours. And the third speaker we're going to hear from today is Annika McCaffrey. Annika is a passionate advocate for children and young people who are affected by violence and disadvantaged by the justice system in particular. Annika is also an independent lived experience consultant, and she advises numerous organisations about how to better support children and young people. She's the creator of the Hidden Victors campaign that puts young people front and centre of the family violence discussion. Annika strives for change and justice and believes that people with lived experiences have insights that are powerful and effective. Annika, as well as doing all that work, Annika's been working in the Resi Care system for the last 4 years, so brings a really, really unique and powerful perspective. So welcome to our three speakers. We very much look forward to your presentation. To the audience, feel free to put any comments you like in the chat button and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So welcome.
Thank you for that, Sue. Thanks for the warm introduction. I just want to take a second to thank everyone for just being here. It's really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's really special just to know that everybody's given up their time to really learn something new and hear what other organisations are doing. But before we get started, like everyone else, it's really important to acknowledge the land on which we meet on. For me, it's the Wurundjeri people, so I'd like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, but I'd also like to extend that to any Aboriginal people or Torres Strait Islanders that we may have here, and acknowledge that we're all on different lands throughout Australia here. So my role in this initiative has been as a lived experience consultant, as Sue kindly put. I've been representing Berry Street, but working alongside this amazing team just around trying to co-design it, trying to come up with different ways of having young people's voice involved and being a real important member along with Tash and Annika of the core team. So it's been absolutely amazing to be involved, and I hope everyone enjoys what they hear throughout this. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the Centre of Excellence for having us here today to present. Personally, I always find the Open Symposium to be such an amazing event, and I understand that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So I just want to say thank you for hosting this. I will now hand over, I will move to the next slide if possible and introduce our team. So as you heard from Sue, we've got Tash and Annika here with me today. We've also got Linda, we've got two Lindas in the core team. We've got Linda H and Linda S. We've also got Felicity, Lisa, and Hannah. What we are, we're a broad team built across a range of different organizations. We've got IHI, we've got community services, Safer Care Victoria, and obviously Berry Street involved, but it's much wider than that. This is just our core team. We work along with many other organizations, which we'll highlight a few of them later. But yeah, this is just our small core team that meets up regularly and meet behind that. I'd like to say thank you to those of our core team who are actually here today. But yeah, I think I hand over to Tash now, who's going to cover safe space.
Thank you, Dylan. So before we sort of get into more of the presentation, I think it's important that we just go through some of the safe space that we do every single time that we go into a space with the improving care work that we do. So whenever we do anything, like regardless of whether young people are present or not, or you know, regardless of the work that we're doing, we always start off with talking about creating a safe space, and we always come back to the this particular visual here that the young people came up with at the foundational workshops, the very beginning of a lot of this improvement work. And I think whenever we're coming into a space, it really is important that we always go back to this, because this is creating a safe space isn't just about creating a safe space for young people. It's about creating a safe space for everyone, and particularly when we're doing work that is about out-of-home care or about things that may re-traumatize young people or have things to do with quite sensitive topics. It's always really important that we're always taking into account what essentially that we're creating a safe space. And with this, I think it is also important that, like, throughout our presentation and when we take questions at the end, that we are considering what's on the screen at the moment to make sure that we're honouring that safe space at all times, essentially. And so, like, some of these, I'll just read it out, because I always find that, like, reading it out sort of helps to sort of consolidate a lot of this. So when we did the workshops and throughout all of what we do, we always look at making sure that we don't have any negativity towards others. We're open and honest. We're allowing time when needed. When we're always listening to people. We're not judging people. We're mindful of others' experiences. Making sure there's no pressure or expectations. We're respecting others. We're not discriminating. We're not using acronyms. There's no such thing as wrong questions. We're supporting each other. We're leaving our roles at the door. We're all equal, and we're assuming positive intent whenever we're coming into a room. So yeah, essentially that's sort of what sort of drives a lot of the work that we do as well. And I'm going to pass now over to Annika to give us an overview of what we'll be covering today.
Thank you, Tash, and good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the organisations and residential care teams who are part of this work. We cannot express how important you are to us, and we couldn't do it without you. So we just want to say a huge thank you to all of your hard work and commitment in this initiative. I would also like to extend our gratitude to all of the residential care workers across the sector who've been working during this difficult and stressful time, given the COVID outbreaks within the homes, lockdown, and the impact it has upon the young people and yourselves. We wanted to say a huge thank you for continuing to be actively involved in the care and development of children and young people. So in today's presentation, we'll be focusing on 4 main areas, which are the model for improvement, co-design and collaboration, developing a theory of change, and generating evidence of improvement through measurement. In other words, basically we'll be going through how we work together to find out what matters to young people most, and the changes we are hoping to work on that will make huge positive difference in residential care. Now, I want you all to keep in mind throughout this presentation that this is youth-led and central to our work, something that I personally am passionate about and the reason why I'm here today. I joined this initiative because it has given the young people the opportunity to have a voice in improving care, a broken system that only the lived experience can influence and lead decision-making and practice. Something that I strongly advocate for is centering young people in our line of work, gaining insights that only lived experience people have, and the true realities of what kind of broken system we work in. So now I'll just pass it over to Linda to talk a little bit about the background and the improvement model. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you so much, Annika, Dylan and Tash. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to now give you a brief overview that just gives a bit of context to where this particular improvement journey started. Some of you may be aware of the partnership between the Institute for Healthcare Improvement and Safer Care Victoria. So for a few years now, Safer Care Victoria has been working with the Institute on a range of initiatives or collaboratives that have really focused on making measurable improvements for people who have contact with Victorian health services. And I wanted to just give a couple of examples of the impact of this work. So in the participating health services, the Safer Baby Collaborative has resulted in a 21% drop in the number of stillbirths, and the Better Births for Women Collaborative has resulted in a 46% reduction in the number of women experiencing severe perineal trauma through childbirth, and that's 351 women. So the really exciting question for us in the Community Services Quality and Safety Office is, can we use this improvement model to not only make a real difference, but also to demonstrate and measure the impact in community services? And while our initial focus is on resi care, and it's also in the west of the state, this is also an opportunity for everyone involved to build their capability in using this improvement methodology, including all of the participating organisations and the lived experience consultants and young people, so that we can make the absolute most of what we learn. And as has happened in health, we can continue to build this capability and make improvements across other parts of the community services system in the future. I really want to emphasise the last point on this slide over and over again, which is that a key feature of this improvement model is that people with lived experience are central to all aspects of the work. Just pop to the next slide, please, Alex. Thank you so much. So just briefly, this slide summarises the model that we've been referring to, and I really hope that it also shows you that at the heart of things, this is really not rocket science. The model simply asks us three questions, those being, what are we trying to accomplish and with whom? How will we know that a change is an improvement? And what changes can we make that will result in improvement? You can see that the answers to these questions really lead us to the aim, the measures, and to the actual ideas for change, which combined essentially make up our theory of change. And then a key feature of how the improvement work actually happens on the ground, if you like, is the Plan, Do, Study, Act, or PDSA cycle. And this is used to test changes and drive a constant process of review and improvement. You can also see how in this particular initiative, the expertise of young people with lived experience of resi has really shaped the answers to the questions that the model is asking us. And we want to emphasise that although sitting behind this model, there's a whole lot of engagement activity and of course the time and effort in developing the measurement strategy, the data systems, etc. Ultimately, once again, it's not a complicated model and it's really very adaptable to just about anything, with the central feature again being that the people who are impacted are the ones who inform all stages and elements. And I also just wanted to explain that at the level of the actual changes, these are really small achievable tests of change. Underpinning all of this work is a belief that there is always room for improvement, and also that small changes can make a big difference. And I just wanted to give you an idea of the sorts of ideas that improvement teams are currently working on in homes. So they include engaging with children and young people in the homes to create their own About Me profiles, to design and be involved in staff handovers in the homes, to improve nighttime routines in ways that support the children and young people to feel safe. And a few of the improvement teams are also doing some really amazing work on improving family contact. So with that, I'm going to pass back to Dylan now to talk a bit more about how we've collaborated and worked together.
Thanks for that, Linda. Yeah, so we've come up with a trying to be co-design and have a collaborating with other organizations as much as we can. As I said at the beginning, it's been a blended team between different organizations and obviously lived experience consultants. We've had young people engaged from the very beginning. Like where we started by meeting with the young people and seeing what they wanted, what were some of the issues that they identified. And then we went to the workers and we brought it all together. So we've tried to make it as co-design as possible. It hasn't always been easy, especially throughout COVID times. And things haven't always gone smoothly, but that's with any work at the moment. It's always going to come with challenges when we're living in unprecedented times. So we've done what we can throughout that. We've got a bit of a theory of change, which came from the young people's experience. Like they came up with that. They decided the subjects and topics that we would target. And then we've been partnering with multiple community service organizations throughout this journey. We've currently got 11 teams. Here's some of the organizations that we've got involved. So massive shout out to them, each one of them. We wouldn't be able to do this without your support and your involvement and willing to participate. So we've got teams working on better placement. We've got teams working on the My Portfolio. We've got teams working around bedtime routines and just all these little things that are really important to the young people. It doesn't have to be such a massive change. It can just be the little things that really stand out to the young people. And that's what we try and encourage throughout this. It's not about tipping the whole system upside down and starting new. It's just about being realistic about what we can change and what's important to the young people. Yeah, so the role of the young people that we've had involved, we've got lived experience consultants, Tash, Anika, myself, involved in the core team. We've got a young person who's on the steering committee. Whenever we do workshop, we make sure that we've got young people involved there, or they're invited to participate and facilitate certain areas of it. We often go back to the young people as we see them as sort of advisors and check in with them about what they're thinking, making sure that we're on the right track, along with trying to just provide that sort of mentor role, inspiring other young people. And we are constantly looking to have them involved in the improvement teams. So we've got all these teams we've got teams that meet on a regular basis, and we really try and encourage young people to be involved in that where possible, come along to some of the meetings, or just be involved in whatever way they can. I'll hand over to Tash to explain a bit more about the theory of change. Mute, Tash.
Of course I'm on mute. No, it's all good. Thank you for letting me know, Dylan, and thank you. But essentially, our theory of change is about what we think we could try and how we might measure it. And it's about how we could essentially create improvements by doing that. During the workshops, we like what was previously said, we heard from young people, we heard from frontline staff, and then we sort of came together and developed 4 different areas of improvement that we could focus on, which is now being taken on by the improvement teams. During the workshops, we first heard from young people, and then we heard from the frontline staff, and then we all came together and we talked about you know, what we wanted to focus on, and how, like, what were the final things that we would end up with that could then be taken to improvement teams to work on. So essentially like that was better placement, support and consistency, safe and stable environment, and education and supporting potential. And it was really interesting because there was we heard a lot from the young people, and we heard a lot from the frontline staff, and there was so much, and yet, like, despite there being so much, it all managed to fit so neatly into like these 4 areas in a way that, like, I think we weren't expecting to begin with. And it just goes to show that, like, that, you know, like, even if we have a lot that we could focus on, like, it all ends up being able to sort of come under the same sort of areas, and we can create even just small changes from what we've heard that then can be tested and see big improvements in residential care. So I think then I'm going to the next one. So we also developed a purpose statement, which came out of the foundational workshops. And we started with what young people identified was the most important to them. And then we met with the Resi workers, and we sort of tested and refined the ideas that we got through those workshops to then come up with this purpose statement, which is we aim to improve residential care so that children and young people feel safe, have stability, are connected to their culture and family, particularly Aboriginal children, and are provided with education and life skills to support their future aspirations. So, like, yeah, it was a really good, I think, few workshops that we did that really came up with this really strong purpose statement and came up with some really good areas of focus. So I will now pass on to Hannah to talk about the measures.
Just a little heads up, guys, you've got a couple more minutes and then we'll have time for some quick questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tash. Just for context, I'm a project director at the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, IHI, and I sit on the core team for this project. So how will we know if the changes that we're making are actually resulting in improvement? Well, we're using data to understand their impact in practice, and then building evidence of the changes that work to improve outcomes. And I'll just outline a little bit more now about what and why we measure. I'll just race through these two. So what do we measure? The key feature of the measurement strategy is that we're measuring what young people tell us matters most to them. So they're the real barometers of change for this initiative, and they're telling us whether we're making improvements or not, both in the house and the placement settings as well. So to achieve that, we're hearing from them directly on a regular basis throughout the initiative about how they're feeling. For example, how involved they felt they were in decisions around their placement into the Resi house. Were their needs and preferences taken into account? Where possible, were reasons for placement communicated clearly to them? And then in terms of safety, how safe do they feel living in the Resi care house? How do they feel about the strength of the relationships they have with workers and others in the house where they've been placed? We've also worked closely with the lived experience consultants and residential care workers to design the measures and the definitions associated with them as well. So, for instance, the concept of feeling safe and secure in a house, lived experience consultants identified the importance of incorporating both the need for physical safety from harm with the need for connection and support through consistent worker relationships as well to generate that feeling of safety and security. So interestingly, I can now make that link with what Jenna Bollinger referred to in the previous presentation about the importance of both psychological and emotional safety as well as physical safety. So some clear connections there. And as Linda's outlined a bit already, the change ideas relating to placement are around reviewing and redesigning processes for communication, matching and supporting major transitions in residential care journey. And the Safe Environment House teams are really working to achieve more supportive and consistent worker relationships, connection to family, and making safer choices as well. So to observe whether the changes in these areas are achieving their aims, we have a whole host of measures in the strategy, including numbers of incidents in the house, as well as numbers of hours spent in contact with family members and in those relationship building activities to observe whether or not the changes are occurring on a weekly or monthly basis as well. And then finally, just why do we measure? Our detailed measurement strategy allows us to understand the impact of the changes as we've outlined, so we can really see what worked and what didn't. And then with this information, the teams can decide to either adopt a change idea and make it part of their practice. They can adapt it if it needs some more work. They tweak and try again and build on their learnings, or they can abandon the change idea if there's just no identifiable way forward for that one and choose a different one in the theory of change. So this is really different to the traditional design method where you would design for a longer period of time and then go straight to implementation. By testing and measuring as we go, we'll be left not only with the best improvements on the list, but the best iterations of them with evidence to demonstrate their impact over a period of time. And all of this builds broader evidence to a greater understanding of what works to improve resi outcomes and experiences for children and young people. So before we hear from you all about any questions or comments you have about what you've heard today, we're just going to finish with a short time-lapse illustration. This was made for children and young people who are participating and living in participating homes about the initiative.
Wow, thank you, team. What an amazing presentation. I don't know who I hope your graphic designer is a young person with lived experience. Whoever they are, they're very, very talented, and I really love the look and feel. There's been a lot of questions in the chat. I think I'm going to sum them up into one question, if that's okay. And it's probably a question to the lived experience panel. I think the approach you've described is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the essence of it is really breaking down those traditional power structures in our society, whether it's adult, child, you know, professional, expert, client, in inverted commas. And I suspect, you know, they're the power structures that have led to the issues we're trying to resolve too. Does that resonate with you? And if so, what sort of tensions and benefits does that bring? That I guess I'm looking at the reorganizing the power structures in our society, and what your thoughts are on that.
I think the real important thing when I hear that is what we've done really well is tried to remind everyone when they step into the space with us, we're all equal.
Yes.
It's about removing that power level altogether. Once you come into the room, we're all equal. We all have our own expertise that we bring. And we're all here for a common goal. We all want to see that improvement in care, and that's what we work towards. There's no, oh, you're a young person, you're a worker sort of dynamic. It's we're all here for a common cause. We've all got different insights, and that's what we try and build on.
Yep.
And that's why that safe space is really important that we keep coming back to. So I think that's something that's really worked well and been beneficial to doing this.
And clearly the sector's ready for it. Has that been most of your experience in the main?
Yeah, look, it's always challenging when you get something new. Different organizations have their own structures, the system's built in a certain way, but the more you do this, the more it comes down. Like we're a new group in terms of what we're doing, but there's plenty of other groups out there that are trying to achieve similar stuff and trying to get youth voice heard.
Yeah.
So it's becoming a common practice across the board.
Yeah.
I think, therefore, the more that it happens, the more that you're able to have that engagement level. So I definitely would say that the system's now at a space where they can accept that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dylan, Tash and Annika, and to the two presenters from the department. Apologies I didn't introduce you earlier. That was very remiss of me. Everyone join me in a huge round of applause for what's a really, really inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. So thank you so much, team.